Hi, my name's Eric, and I'm just recording my video for the teaching story video in communication to youth. So, what I'm going to be communicating is relating a story from my life to baptism in Scripture. So, anyway, a while ago, I started dating this girl that I really liked. We were best friends, and our friendship after months eventually turned into more of a romantic side of things. It just was a supernatural transition. I was super crazy about her, and I was super paranoid that I would be messing things up. But just days into us deciding that we would start dating, I went to a party that she was hosting at her house. During that day, probably 50 people found out that we were dating. Like, it was kind of obvious. I had my arm around her almost the whole night, and we were really close that whole time. And so the whole world knew, and it was a scary and new and exciting thing that happened all at the same time. Um, it seemed like in that moment, in those moments, that I was feeling every emotion all at once. Um, but then, while that was happening at that New Year's Eve party, I started talking to a couple of friends who were also there. There was a lot of people there. And one of them asked if I had talked to her father yet and asked his permission to date her. And I had not. I thought it was unnecessary. Like, why would I do that? Why not just do it the way it was? It was going fine, and everything seemed to be working for me. But they thought differently, and they convinced me that it was actually a really good idea, and that it would be they would be honored if their significant others had done the same for them. So, with the intention of impressing her, I waited for her parents to get home from the hockey game they were at. When they got home, the party was still going, which was perfect, so I could just sneak her dad into his office space. And that's exactly what I did. He got home, and I went right up to him. I'm like, "Hey, can we have a conversation?" And he's like, "Okay." So, anyway, I just want to put this into perspective. There's a bunch of young adults hanging out all over the house. He gets home from a hockey game, and he didn't really even have time to breathe. As soon as he walked in, I marched over and asked to talk, and because I knew if I didn't do it then, it would never happen. So I brought him into his own office, which is actually quite a small room, and I didn't know where to start. So I started asking about the hockey game while choking on my own words. He finally gently asked me to get to the point, not because he was impatient, but probably because he wanted to put me out of my own misery. Anyway, I asked him if I could date his daughter. Expecting a bit more enthusiasm, his reply was like, "Well, what does she think?" And I told her that we had already talked, and he said, "Well, if she thinks it's okay, then so do I. Anything else?" Uh, I quietly replied and no and walked out of his office. Like, to the look of like, actually, yeah, like when I walked out of his office, there the girl was staring right at me as I left her dad's office, and she kind of looked confused and curious to why I was walking out of the office with her dad. Anyway, that conversation happened well over a year ago, and it was actually the last time I ever had a conversation with him. The girl I liked so much ended things with me a few weeks later. Um, it definitely was not like a fairy tale ending. Like, after a few months of awkwardness, we were able to regain our friendship. However, still over a year later, I still have not talked to her dad. I kind of avoid him because if I ever go to her house, my first question always is, "Your parents home? Will I see them?" Anyway, here's the question though. Did I ask her dad permission to date his daughter because it was something that people always did? Was it even something necessary that I needed to do? Culturally, is it even necessary for me to do that? Or was it just a nice gesture? But my question for you guys today is this how baptism is viewed today? Is it just something that people always did that might not be culturally necessary anymore? Is it just a nice gesture towards your faith? When I asked this girl's dad permission, I really only did it because people told me it was the right thing that I should do. Do you think baptism is the same? Are you considering it because people have told you it was the right thing to do? I would compare a Christian baptism to a marriage ceremony. Realistically, if you have committed your life to one person, is the ceremony of a wedding necessary? Ceremony is merely an outward symbol of your commitment, and you really only need to sign some papers and hand them in. You can be married to each other then, just like you can be a Christian and not be baptized. You can go to church, love Jesus, and be saved without being baptized, but just like you can live with someone and be with them forever without the ceremony happening, if you're following what I'm saying. See, in Exodus 20, a wedding ceremony happened between God and his people on Mount Sinai. God was married to his people in this ceremony. And what we know as the Ten Commandments became wedding vows between him and his people. Israel had become God's bride. But when Moses came down the mountain with these vows that were freshly made, he found that the Israelites, his chosen people that he had just married together, were cheating on him. Think about this for a moment. Imagine just getting married to the person you love so dearly and finding out that literally on your wedding night, your new spouse was cheating on you. Think about how devastating that would be. And still, through his massive grief, God never divorced them. God never left. And he stayed faithful forever, because in this marriage ceremony, this baptism between you and God, you have nothing to fear, for God will always remain faithful no matter how many times you cheat or spit on his face. Because he is forever faithful, and he promises that. Because to me, that makes me want to love him more and not take advantage of his grace. To me, that makes me want to honor his commitment, this commitment of baptism. It makes me want to love God even more. You know, I wonder if there's ever going to be a day where I fall for a girl and I'll want to ask her father's permission because she's something I want for the rest of my life. Maybe she's something that I feel committed to. And even though it seems outside of the social norm to do, I would still want to honor this timeless tradition in honor and reverence of this love that I have for her. See, baptism might be a tradition. Baptism might be something that we've done for thousands of years. And baptism might not even be necessary for salvation. But why? Why does it matter? Why would you do it just to be saved? You see, I think when we start to realize and understand that we have this deep love for this Father, that being baptized isn't a question. Why be baptized is not a question. Instead, the question is, when can I be baptized? Because this love that this Father has shown me is so broad and I want him forever. So why not be baptized? Anyway, thank you for watching.